Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Limerick Junior Soccer Focus with myself, Adrian Finnin, and joined once again by Aidan Ryan this evening. Aidan, there's only one place for us to start tonight. It's the quarter-final of the Tuohy Cup, where we were both in attendance yesterday evening, where Charleville beat Coonagh 2-0 to advance to the semi-final with a meeting against Ashling and Coddy. There was two goals from Donal O'Connell, one in the first half, one in the second half, and the very dying embers, really, to finish Coonagh off. Aidan, a really good night for Charleville and deserving winners, to be fair.
Yeah, good night for Castle and Charleville. Thought they played really well, Adrian, especially in the first half. Played a lot of attractive football, moved the ball quickly on the ground, played a lot of little triangles and 1-2s, and got the team into a position where they had a lot of 2v1s and 3v2s during the first half. I thought they were helped by the way Coonagh set up. We were probably a little bit confused at the start at how Coonagh set up, but we eventually did kind of set on a 3-5-2. But the 5 were too far apart, strung across the pitch. They weren't compact enough at all, in my opinion. And the 3 at the back were too far apart in from the 5. Because in fairness to Charleville, they weren't just attacking down the sides; they were actually attacking through the middle and getting through the middle very, very easily. And I thought maybe the two lads up front, Ger Miles and Danny Izakodi, were kind of defending in the wrong areas of the pitch, really. I thought they were going out to fullbacks too early to try and close them down, and it wasn't really their job. Now, they did sort that after half-time, but Charleville had really a good foothold in the game in the first half and deserved their 1-0 lead. And wasn't it a brilliant goal from Donal O'Connell? Fantastic finish. Nice move, nice crisp move with a couple of passes into him down the right-hand side of the box, came back into his left foot and buried it into the corner, and they deserved to be 1-0 up at half-time.
Yeah, it was a very credible performance. Football-wise, I suppose, Aidan, from Charleville. I know from playing them myself in the past, like, they have a lot of very good footballers, but there was a confident display that maybe they maybe haven't shown. Maybe I'm not sure, for instance, all season, but they were well on top in patches. And as Adam Castle referred to after the game himself, there was another 2 or 3 goals that could have been collectors' items as well if they were finished off with the final ball or the final finish. Yeah,
over the 90 minutes, but it's in the first half. A lot of good football, moved it wide when they had to, and as I said, played through midfield a lot, seemed to bypass the 5 across midfield for Coonagh and find loads of spaces in behind them. I thought there was a lot of space given to the lad midfield, Joe Kavanagh, the small lad midfield, and he was dictating the game a lot from there. Now, he didn't get as much space in the second half because obviously Coonagh tightened up, and eventually when Niall Errors got injured, they went to a 4, so they tightened up considerably. But he ran the game in the first half, and you've people like Gary Ward and Donal O'Connell, Keane McNamara, Shane Dillon, who are all technically very good and very good at finding space, especially when teams aren't as tight as they should be. And they create a lot of chances. And, if you look at the game over the 90 minutes, certainly if it wasn't for Josh Sheehan, who I thought was outstanding in goal for Coonagh, and Rory O'Neill at centre half, especially the second half, some of the blocks and the tackles he got in the box really latched this stuff. But a willingness to defend on his part, it kept Coonagh in the game. And listen, you never know at 1-0. Coonagh would always get a chance. They had one very good chance with 10 minutes left, where a ball into the box and the header, which the Charleville keepers made a decent save out of. But that was really Coonagh's, for all the huffing and puffing.
That was probably the biggest disappointment, I suppose, Aidan, wasn't it? Is that, it was a workmanlike performance from Coonagh, but never really looked like breaking through.
Yeah, you can't fault Coonagh for commitment and character, can you?
No.
They keep going. No matter what's going on in the pitch, Coonagh keep going for 90 minutes. They never stop. But they didn't create a whole lot. Now, in fairness to them, Adrian, no Josh Sheehan, no Kieran Barry, no Gordon McKevitt, who did probably rely on to create a bit of stuff. No Chris Kea. So and you had Niall Errors, who I think I referred to after about 10 minutes, looked to me to be carrying an injury, and he succumbed to that injury into the second half. So they've had a lot of bad luck. No, lots of teams are without players and missing players and get injuries. But in Coonagh's case, they've been very unlucky the last 3 or 4 weeks in terms of injuries and players missing. and that hampered them quite a bit. But they're not really a team that create. They rely on work rate, commitment, character, play a lot of direct football, and to try and stay in games as long as they can. But Charleville were worthy winners, as I said, played some fantastic football throughout the 90 minutes, I thought.
Yeah, you mentioned a few players that you were impressed with on the night, Aidan, a couple from Coonagh and obviously a few from Charleville as well. One player who we both were impressed with was Cian McNamara, a really young player. If he's even 19, I think he's maybe just turned 19. But I suppose on top of his technical ability, it was the work rate, you said as well, that was a standout. He does seem to have all the attributes for a player that could be at the top end of the Premier sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I like to look at this boy, Adrian. He really has all the attributes. He's 6'1", big strong boy, very good attitude on and off the ball, works hard for his teammates. Really impressed me last night with his work rate off the ball. Couple of balls breaking down, showed no disappointment with it, got back into position, tried to get a tackle in or tried to affect the play on the other side of the pitch so that things didn't build up for Coonagh. Really good on the ball, great balance, a lot of third man runs, good link play. This boy has all the attributes to be a top player. Really standout player on the team. I think you mentioned Donald Conn yourself, and he had a really good night, hadn't he? Nice balance, worked hard for the team as well, but a lot of big skill factor with this boy, and very good left foot, good passer of the ball. A lot of good players in that team. And they showed it last night, and they looked like they were enjoying their game last night, enjoying their football, and they took control of the game early, which helped, and passed the ball really well. I thought they had a very good shape about them. And I was also impressed with the right full, James Horgan. Simon earlier on the season, Adrian, he played centre-half. And I like that about defenders, that they can play centre-half and play full-back. It's a great attribute to have. It helps the manager a lot. He was very impressive last night at right full. You know, a lot of players didn't get the better man. He went forward at pace, linked the play, and was probably unlucky. I think you mentioned it yourself during the match that he didn't finish off a great move they had in the second half, because he started it and nearly got on the end of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Charleville might not thank us for highlighting the performances of certain players. I was speaking to their manager afterwards, Adam Castle, who was obviously in high spirits. Aidan, I was going to refer to you losing your hair, but I'm not so sure that would be the apt term to use in this case. Any maybe little hair you left might have been torn out when I referred to the top six and bottom six split, and Adam said that he thinks that they have no interest in playing the likes of Ashley Anacotty and Pike Rovers, and that Anacotty and Pike Rovers likewise wouldn't have any interest in playing the likes of Charleville, and he thinks the top six, bottom six is the perfect solution right now for a club like Charleville, and even for most clubs in the league. I suppose, look, one of your points probably will be, why would you want to get promoted in that case? But I know that probably would have rubbed you up the wrong way.
Yeah, I saw the interview today, Adrian, between yourself and Adam. A real loving interview. All you were short was a couple of 99s with flakes on top, in my opinion. But a fantastic interview. I thought Adam spoke very well, came across well, and he was obviously delighted with the display. Yeah, that comment would hurt me. I mean, if you're going to come up from the Premier A, surely you want to be playing the top teams in the division. Surely that has to be part of the whole setup of coming up. The fact that you're happy enough to be in the bottom six after the split, maybe in his case I can see it in that they've just come up, okay, and you want to establish yourself up there. But in my opinion, the whole point of a league is to go up there and play the very best, play the Fairviews, play the Pikes, play the as it is now the Ashlings, play the regionals, and Nina have proved it. Nina have shown that they want to be up in that six and regional want to be playing the very best. And I think that's what Adam and Charleville should be aspiring to. Now, fair enough, his point is, look, we want to stay in the bottom six and we want to establish ourselves. But it isn't something I would be aspiring to. I'd be aspiring to a 10-team league, as I've said before, and to be playing the very best, to improve standards of all the teams. Why can't we have 8 very good teams, Adrian? Why can't we have 10 very good teams? Why can't we aspire to have those standards rather than just having 3 or 4 very good teams? You know, this top 6 team means we're isolating that top 6. You know, they're the very best. We'll scrap away at the bottom 6. Why should it be that way? Why can't you aspire to have 7 good teams, 8 good teams, 9 good teams, 10 good teams in time? Mightn't happen straight away, but let's aspire to improve our standards.
Absolutely, and hopefully the likes of Charleville can do that over the next couple of years if they do consolidate. Because it wasn't just maybe Keane McNamara, another lad, Jack O'Callaghan, younger players in that squad, that if they were stayed at Charleville, you know, there could be a possibility that they could be a top 6 team sooner rather than later. I did mention to Adam Castle afterwards that I had him backed in like we did last week to finish top of the bottom section. He said they wouldn't leave me down, although he did also mention that last night was the first time I'd seen him, even though I got a few pastings off him myself last year with Corbley. So, you know, I was well aware of their qualities, that's for sure. But on top of that, I suppose you could say there was a bit of contradiction, Aidan, in terms of when Adam said that, you know, they had no interest in playing the likes of Aisling, because he did say that when they come up to Premier, that they wanted to make an impression and they wanted, you know, to bring an attractive style of football. Do you think that with that approach in the bottom, that it will suit them, particularly at home in the bottom section, and that they obviously should be aspiring to finish top of that, surely?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. They play a very attractive style of football, Adrian, but I've also made the point, and you brought it up in the interview, about the goals against column. And to be fair, they didn't look like conceding last night. They had a very good shape about them. They kept the ball for most of the match, so Coonagh didn't get the ball to be doing any damage to them. But the big test for them will be keeping clean sheets, even in the bottom 6. And you see, you have to keep that consistency every week. And we flagged it last week that they gave Bala a reasonable game. They certainly gave Fairview a really good game in the cup. But you have to bring that intensity every single week now. So that will be a test for them. Can they keep that consistency every week against the Coonaghs, the Mungrets, the Janesboroughs, who'll certainly want to be getting at them? So that would be a huge test for them. And listen, they might have aspirations to finish top of the tree in the bottom 6. And as Adam said, collecting the shield. We'll have to wait and see how that turns out.
You couldn't have said that with less enthusiasm, but anyway, I'm sure this definitely won't be the last time we talk about this throughout the season. I suppose we go from the top 6 now, from the bottom 6 into what's going to be the top 6 and the top 2 probably towards the end of the season. We've Pike Rovers taking on Fairview Rangers in a rerun of the Munster Junior Cup match that recently took place at the same venue. You look at the league form of these two sides, and it's 8 wins out of 8 for Pike, 8 wins from 9 for Fairview, obviously losing that game against Bala in LIT. If you look at the form of both sides, though, it's 6 goals conceded between the two of them in 17 games. I think it's 47 goals scored. So obviously it promises to be a humdinger. But I tell you one thing, surely, if anything, revenge is on the mind of Pike Rovers. Do you expect them to have a similar setup, Aidan, to what they had? Because it's a short turnaround and they lost 3-0 in that game. Will it be a similar kind of defensive setup for Robbie Williams?
Oh, big question that. To be fair to Robbie Williams, Adrian, it worked for a long spells of the last match. It worked for 50 or 60 minutes. The question we had afterward was when Fairview went down to 10 men, Pike didn't seem to have I often hate using the word the plan B, but an alternative way of playing against 10 men in terms of how they'd attack, and they were picked off on the counter attack. So I think he'll have his homework done for this match. I think it'll be a very tight game again, because the games they've had over the last 12, 15 months have been very tight. Even though the scoreline in that match would led us to believe that it wasn't tight. It was quite tight for 50 or 60 minutes. They went with the 5-3-2. I don't think Fairview had a chance, bar maybe Conor Coughlin's chance earlier on in the first half. Yeah, so other than that, they didn't have a sniff. So he might look at that and say, we'll go with that again, on the assumption that, look, it'll be 11-11 throughout the whole game, and we'll pick our moments, and we'll pay the percentages in terms of maybe set pieces.
But, it's not often, Aidan, that you'd be if you were a Pike person, you'd hope in Fairview stay with 11 for the whole game.
Well, yeah, maybe so, because listen, he didn't seem to know how to attack Fairview against with the 10 men. But there is a lot of talent in that Pike team, and I think I think maybe the leash needs to be left off a little bit in terms of the match every now and then. I think he'll be tight earlier on. There's no doubt about that. But I think he needs to have some sort of a setup where he can get at that Fairview back four. And remember, Adrian, I've questioned that Fairview back four. I think there is weak links in that Fairview back four. And I think if the personnel are there, and what I mean by personnel is maybe the likes of Colin Walsh-O'Loughlin back in the team, etc., and maybe setting up with a system that will get at those weak links, I think there could be joy there for Pike. It has the makings of a draw. The games have been so tight between them. I'm led to believe AJ Connor's out for Fairview, so that could be a big factor in the match as well. He's such a big influence on that team. But Fairview is still a strong team in terms of the ball when they have the ball. And those three front runners, and you've obviously Jack Arra there as well. You're going to need to be on your toes and have a system which they had the last day, where these boys aren't going to hurt you. It'll be fascinating to see how the two teams set up, especially Pike. Absolutely,
and I suppose just for the benefit of anyone who wasn't at the game, Aidan, on the day, you might be able to shed light on it now, but obviously we had in the 5-3-2, you had Aaron Murphy starting up front with Kevin Barry on the day. You also had Stephen McGann, Robbie Williams and Shane Walsh in midfield, and the back three, well, it was a back five, but the centre back three was Pat Mullins, Adam Lipper, and obviously Eddie O'Donovan on the left that day. But I suppose, look, coming from Danny Neal was on the right as well, but you mentioned it there, outside of Colin Walsh-O'Loughlin, who obviously we don't know if all these players are available, through injury or other things. But if Colin Walsh-O'Loughlin's available, Aidan, you'd imagine he'll absolutely come into that left-hand side or maybe in the right-hand side, no matter what the formation is. Do you think there'll be any more personnel changes to Pike?
Well, Owen Hanlon, I suppose, will be back in the team.
That's another one.
And I would play Owen Hanlon higher up the pitch. I wouldn't play him as one of the three. If they go with three, I'd play him higher up the pitch. He's a very creative player, a player who can read the game. Technically, as you know, Adrian, one of the best players in the country in terms of his technique, and a big factor in set pieces, which we've alluded to before. Those two players alone now would make a massive difference to that 11, it must be said, and we'll ask questions of Fairview. So I would expect something to happen with the two of those there. If AJ O'Connor is out of the Fairview team, you have to look at where Jeffrey Judge might start. He has been starting left full. You might be looking at bringing him into the midfield. I think Martin Deedy's on the way back. Yeah. He's naturally excited, so he might come into the full back position. We have a fair idea how Fairview will set up. The big intriguing thing is what Pike will do. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. But those two players alone, Adrian, they'll make a massive difference to that Fairview 11, assuming they're fit to play.
Yeah, I do believe actually, Aidan, as well, that Adrian O'Connor has emigrated. So that's a huge loss for Fairview Rangers for the rest of the season. I mean, not just on the field, Aidan, but he really was a huge figure and a huge leader off the field. It was clear to see around that club as well.
Oh, geez, a massive loss if that's true. If he is gone abroad, look, on the pitch, an absolute diamond of a player, so disciplined, real team player, can play anywhere over the pitch, captain of the team, I think, as well. Yeah. So yeah, massive loss in the dressing room before games and after games. Massive loss. Big blow to Fairview, no doubt about it.
Yeah, certainly. So I do think that maybe you could be right. It could be going back to Bradley, Judge and Duggan midfield, but again, we've spoken about it enough, but you'd imagine Darragh Rainsford, Conor Ellis, Conor Coughlin, with Jack Arra coming off the bench. I mean, there isn't many people that have those type of riches either, to be fair. I know we've alluded to the fact that they don't have a huge squad or a huge selection from the substitutes bench, but particularly in that area, when you have someone like Jack Arra in reserve, which you expect that's going to be the case again this week, that's huge as well.
Yeah, these boys are a massive threat. And the thing about them, Adrian, is there's goals in every single one of them. You'll often get a front three and or a four with Jack Arra, obviously, and there mightn't be goals in all of them, but all these boys have goals in them. They're all a goal threat. And what I like about them this season is their work off the ball. I think they're working a lot harder off the ball when they don't have it, and I think they're more team players than I have seen in a long time. and they're going to be a massive threat again. So you have that quality in the squad. Obviously, the way they're set up, you would expect Ellis, Coughlin and Rainsford to start, and Jack Arrow with that threat off the bench. And behind them, possibly those three, with Bradley sitting in front of the back four, doing what he does, and Duggan and Judge linking the play and making those third man runs. And they're also a threat, as we have seen throughout the season. So certainly a fascinating game. Really looking forward to it.
And obviously as well, the supporters are so ferocious on the line. We always get a lot of entertainment, don't we, Aidan, from both sets of supporters. As I said, I've said this to Shane Duggan before, and I've probably said it to you on the podcast before the Munster Junior game, but there does always seem to be that added edge in when both of these sides play each other, regardless of the venue.
Yeah, well, it's a derby match, and there's huge history, Adrian, between the two clubs. And, you know, going back years, and I've experienced it myself.
It's funny, Aidan, isn't it? Because, like, we always talk about, you know, the generational gap and how, you know, maybe, you know, that bite isn't there anymore. But it does seem to be passed down when both of these clubs play each other, doesn't it? To the players that either come in or the players that come up from the youth levels.
Yeah, it's in the DNA, Adrian. I was there myself when I was 18. I signed for Pike. I was still actually a youth player. And at that time, Pike was struggling down at the bottom of the Premier League, and actually Fairview were kind of struggling down there as well. And I can remember it was absolutely ferocious, the games we played in the league. And I was a young, a green 18-year-old playing out the wing for Pike. And I got a few tasty tackles in my time off some of the Fairview fullbacks. So it's in the DNA there. And they're ferocious games, but they're fantastic games to be involved in, it must be said.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one that certainly will have a keen eye. It's the big focus, obviously, now this weekend as well, as it is the only two Premier clash as such. You have a lot of clashes in Premier A and the likes, but there's the FAI Youths is actually taking a centre stage effectively as well. You have Fairview taking on Peak, Janesborough taking on Cork Celtic, and Ashling travelling to Castlebar. So obviously we wish all those teams a lot of luck in their endeavours this week, Aidan, and obviously we hope they can get as far as they can.
Yeah, well, it was disappointing the weekend to see the Oscar Traynor Youth team. Many of those lads would have been playing and go out to Galway above in Jackman Park. So obviously we're hoping those teams come through. I would be familiar with a few of the Janesborough players.
A few of them have actually played, haven't they, already for the junior team at times this season?
They have, yeah. And they've done well. I've watched them and they've done really well. And Shane is going that way with Janesborough. He's putting his faith in a lot of those youth players, and they've been involved in the squad. A lot of them would have played Kenny the Cup a few years ago, and I would have been involved with a few of them. So obviously we're hoping they do well. And we need our youth teams doing well, Adrian, at this stage of the competition, because these lads will be playing junior football in the year or two. Some of them are playing at the moment. So they're the future of junior football in the city. And a lot of them hopefully will go on to play at a higher level as well.
Yeah, and I suppose just a word on the Oscar Traynor Trophy at senior level, Aidan. Obviously, yourself and Shane O'Hanlon led Limerick. We know that the format was it was basically the league winners, Janesborough, in representing the Limerick District League. He won that competition, which I suppose shows you the value of continuity, you know, and maybe and how good that team was. But it's kind of there's been mixed messages, hasn't there? Because they've said they're going to change the format of the Oscar Traynor Trophy, and in terms of making it maybe a shorter and more concise tournament played over a shorter period of time. Have you heard anything on you know how that will be formatted? Because there doesn't seem to have been much word on it since.
The rumour I heard a few weeks ago was that it was definitely going to be taking place sometime in January, by all accounts. And they're talking about a format in terms of the provinces that they will have just one group in Munster, one group in Connacht, one group in Leinster or whatever, and that maybe two teams will come out of each group and go into a last eight situation. Whether that comes to fruition or not remains to be seen. I would have a slight concern about it maybe starting in January, in that a lot of the top clubs will be looking at being in the out-of-town stages of the FAI and the Munster Junior. And given that it hasn't started like it would normally do before Christmas, I would have a little concern about the makeup of the squads.
Did you find it when you were manager of the Oscar Traynor, obviously not with Janesborough, but when you were manager of Oscar Traynor, you had to pick from, you know, different squads. Was there resistance from clubs?
Generally, no. In my time, I have to say I got generally a great response. I would have had trouble maybe with one club who were concerned about the amount of players maybe that I had picked out of that club. But other than that, I didn't have any problems. But I do know of managers before my time, Adrian, that would have had problems with it. And I would be disappointed with that because it's a national trophy and it's an FAI trophy. And you've only, I said before, a junior player has only two FAI trophies he can win. He can win the FAI Oscar Traynor Trophy and he can win the FAI Junior Cup. And the Janesborough lads will tell you it's a fantastic trophy to win, Adrian.
It even looks
brilliant.
Trophy.
It's brilliant to be involved in this. It's a fantastic trophy to win. And I know from my own time as a player, I was lucky enough to win 2 as a player, Adrian, back in the 90s, back in 94 and 96. And we had fantastic sides. Paddy Cusick was over, the late Paddy Cusick was over the teams, and he was a great influence on me in terms of the Oscar Traynor and my love of it. And we had the top players playing. He had no problem getting players playing in the competition. Now the only difference that time, Adrian, was it was practically knockout. There were no group stages, so you would have been drawn maybe against the Desmond League, and then you went. If you were beaten, you were out. So from that point of view, it was fairly cutthroat stuff. But it certainly added to the tension of the whole thing, and absolutely brilliant trophy to win and brilliant medal to have.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it. And hopefully, obviously, the prestige of the competition is restored in the new year. That's for sure. It's great to hear from you once again, Aidan, and thanks once again for joining us and giving us your insight and analysis into the games and a preview of, obviously, the big clash this weekend between Pike Rovers and Fairview, which we will be dissecting again next week. As I suppose we're nearing closer to the Christmas break, so we probably only have about 3 or 4 weekends in it, Aidan, before we've already reached half a season. Time really does fly. But obviously, we hope to be back, and we hope that you can all join us